The meeting to order. Guess we need to take roll, do we not? We're going to close the roll and note that a quorum is present. Couple, or at least one administrative action. We have a request from Delegate Simons to strike House Bill 2242.
So moved.
Is there a second to that motion? All in favor signify by saying aye. No, recorded vote. Recorded vote. Close the roll. Bill will be stricken by 7-0 margin. So House Bill 1898, Delegate McGuire.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe there's a substitute.
Move the substitute.
Is there a second? Second. Motion is second to adopt substitute. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Substitutes before us, 1-0.
Mr. Chairman, House Bill 1898 is a bill to help us fight anti-Semitism. And House Bill 1898 will prevent contractors who engage in business with the Virginia government and Virginia public universities from boycotting Israel. The bill also establishes penalties if these guidelines are not followed, including fines and a ban from further business in Virginia. The Global Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions BDS movement is an anti-Semitic and discriminatory effort designed to destroy Israel as a Jewish state through economic means. While Virginia passed a non-binding anti-BDS resolution in March 2016, it has not passed a statutory anti-BDS law that prevents businesses who contract with public bodies from boycotting Israel. Similar bills passed in over 30 states. The country of Israel is one of the United States' strongest allies. BDS singles out Israel while ignoring human rights abuses in other parts of the world, and unfortunately, anti-Semitism is on the rise, as we have news of people spreading hate in Charlottesville as recently as last weekend. The 180,000 Jewish people in Virginia should not be subject to discrimination based on their religion. It's easy to understand if you were to replace the words Jewish people with black people or Hispanic people, then everyone would see they would be opposed to this kind of hate and boycott. So I asked that I also have a subject matter expert. His name is Eli Carr. He was an advisor to the State Department on anti-Semitism and terrorism, and he would be able to answer questions much more detailed than me.
Thank you, Delegate McGuire. Any members have any questions for Delegate McGuire?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Delegate Wampler.
Delegate McGuire, do we have any examples of companies in Virginia that are boycotting Israel right now that you're aware of?
I am, in our universities. And if you wouldn't mind, maybe Elon would be able to speak in more detail.
Thank you. Anyone here physically in support of the bill? Please come forward. Anyone here?
I think we have somebody.
We do.
Connie.
Hi, I'm Connie Meyer. It's nice to see you. So I am a part of Virginia's Commission to Combat Anti-Semitism, and we had Alon Carr slated to talk to you with specific examples. We have many companies that do boycott Israel. I don't have the companies, but can get them for you. He is the worldwide expert. We made sure when we crafted these bills that the Conference of Presidents of the United States, which is every affiliated organization, Jewish organization in the United States of America, has a special working group made up of lawyers and subject matter experts, so that every word of this piece of every bill that we put out for you, because we have so much respect for you, would be done in the proper fashion. Hence the reason 30 other states have passed this bill. We also know that it has withstood sorry, it has withstood lawsuits in some of those states. And I think you asked about specific companies in the United States that boycott Israel. We also have local companies that even in their civic areas, even in their city councils, people have come and demonstrated against those companies. Do you want me to go grab and see if I can not get that list for you now, since he is not online?
Yeah, if you
Should I do
can,
that,
or if you could
sir?
even provide it later, maybe, that might be helpful also.
And I might be able to do it now, since I just walked in. I might be able to get it quickly online for you right now.
Okay.
Let me check for you.
All right, thank you.
In the meantime, we do have other people speaking for the bill. Would
Yes,
that
ma'am.
help as we're going forward?
Yes, ma'am, thank
Okay,
you.
let me do that.
Please come forward.
Mr. Chair, Skip Estes with the Governor's Office. I would like to say that the administration supports this bill. This bill is a recommendation from the Commission to Combat Anti-Semitism. This exact same legislation exists in around 30 other states around the country. It is aligned with the foreign policy interests of the United States, and it also, to speak on the specific companies this would impact, there's a solar company based in Virginia that also has assets in Israel that currently has a boycott against their activities. So this matters for companies that employ Virginians, and this is a recommendation from the Commission, which was comprised of around 15 experts on anti-Semitism representing interfaith organizations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, Josh Humphreys on the Attorney General's office, wanted to say we appreciate the work of the Governor's Anti-Semitism Commission. We had a representative on the task force as well, and just want to say we support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. Amy Parent-Seibert on behalf of the three federations, the Richmond Federation, Tidewater, and the Greater Washington Federation. Unfortunately, folks had some technical difficulties and couldn't be here, but we support the bill, and thank you for the substitute.
Thank you. Anyone here physically in opposition to the bill?
Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Welcome.
My name is Zaina Ashrawi Hutchison. I'm with the Virginia Coalition for Human Rights. I'm here to ask you to vote no on HB 1898. This bill is part of an ongoing and strategic effort to stifle support for Palestinian human rights and silence criticism of Israel and its documented human rights abuses. Boycotts are a constitutionally protected right and a form of nonviolent resistance against injustice and oppression. This bill, its patron, and its proponent want people to essentially take a loyalty oath to a foreign government, Israel. This foreign government, or foreign country, has built a 25-foot concrete wall, more than twice the height of the Berlin Wall, on Palestinian land, separating Palestinian farmers from their fields, families from one another, and imprisoning millions. For decades, Israel has been demolishing our homes, tear gassing our schools, stealing our land and natural resources, imprisoning our youth, killing and maiming our children, parents, and grandparents. So far, this month alone, Israel has killed at least 35 Palestinians, including a 61-year-old woman, a high school teacher, and 9 children, with impunity and with billions of dollars in funding from our government. If anyone chooses to boycott Israel for their well-documented and decades-long human rights abuses, then they have and should continue to have the right to do so. As a Palestinian born and raised, and as an American and a Virginian, I ask you to vote no on HB 1898. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello. My name is Nancy Ween. I am a member of the Richmond Jewish community. As a member of that community, I feel that it is my duty, it is my obligation, a central pillar of the Jewish ethical tradition, to speak out against the violations of Palestinian human rights so powerfully described by my friend Zaina Hutchison. HB 1898, if adopted, would violate the First Amendment rights of me and of all Virginians to use the time-honored tradition of boycotts to call out Israel for its human rights abuses. We've been down this road before, twice in the General Assembly, and the correct vote was made. Back in 2016, and really just about a year ago today, these bills were offered and rejected by the General Assembly. Both times, these unconstitutional bills have been rejected. This is a simple one. This is not complicated. As the recent vote against SB 1375 in the Virginia Senate makes clear, boycotts are an American tradition, from the Boston Tea Party to the Montgomery bus boycott and many other examples. Boycotts are as American as apple pie, and we use them for many purposes. Boycotts are a constitutionally protected form of free speech under the First Amendment. You must vote no on HB 1898. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Chairman Campbell and delegates. My name is Robin Allman. I live in Richmond, Virginia. I am a Unitarian Universalist, and I am here as an active member of the Richmonders for Peace in Israel and Palestine, which I joined after a visit to Palestine, and the Virginia Coalition for Human Rights. I am here to urge you to vote no on HB 1898 because at its core it is unconstitutional, and that has been shown before, especially in Texas. If you watch the movie Boycott, you will see it discussed there. Similar bills have failed, as Nancy just said. Contractors in Virginia have no business pledging loyalty to a foreign government. This does not belong in our laws. Universities must be free to debate and learn, and I urge you to vote no on HB 1898. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your comments. Delegate Walker, do you have a question?
No, sir. At the appropriate time, Mr. Chairman, I'd move the adoption of 1898 at the appropriate time.
Appreciate that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We've got plenty online to want to speak to this. We're aware. Yes.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, we have a couple of people that are trying to get online, but they're just getting a blank screen. Can we do anything to help them?
So, one of them that the delegate's talking about was subpoenaed.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, yes.
Mr. Chairman, if someone is going to speak to the members, shouldn't they go to the microphone and just not stand up and start speaking?
Yeah, well, so let's do this. Let's take up who we've got online right now. Looks like Vicki Fishman. Are you online, Ms. Fishman? No, not online? Okay.
You can see who's up.
Yeah, okay. Let's take up Nada El Irayan. Am I pronouncing that correctly or butchering it?
Nada El-Arian, that's okay.
Okay,
no problem. My name is Nada El-Arian, and I'm a longtime resident of Fairfax County and also a graduate of Fairfax County Public Schools. I do ask you to vote no on HB 1898 because, as others have said, it is our constitutional right to boycott. It has been a lifelong and decades and centuries long tradition from the civil rights movement here in the U.S. to boycotts in South Africa that were very effective. And I do urge us to also break from using anti-Semitism in a way that actually detects or deflates the anti-Semitism and what it is. Criticizing Israel is not criticizing Jewish people, just like criticizing the Vatican or Saudi Arabia does not criticize Catholic people or Muslim people. We are talking about a political institution that has documented human rights violations, and it is our right and our values as human beings to look out for other human beings and use our money, use our values to boycott and hold people accountable in a nonviolent way. So I urge you all to vote no on this bill that is unconstitutional and infringing on our human rights.
Thank you, ma'am. Melissa Noisier.
Thank you. Melissa Noisier. I'm from Arlington, Virginia. I'm also an advocate for human rights with the Virginia Coalition for Human Rights and Unitarian Universalists for Justice in the Middle East. I traveled to Israel and Palestine in 2019, and I was horrified, absolutely horrified by what I witnessed. So when we speak about a boycott here, it is an expression of our upset, our outrage over the policies and actions of the Israeli government in the occupied Palestinian territories. I would just like to share as a matter of information, for example, that since 2009, the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has documented over 9,000 home, school, and agricultural demolitions. This is where bulldozers driven by Israeli Defense Forces demolish homes, schools, etc. It's resulted in 13,000 displaced people, 185,000 affected people. This is why we're concerned. This is why the right to boycott is so important. I have a right to speak out, to tell that story, and to exercise my freedom to purchase, buy, as I may. So I think, thank you for your time. I have Palestinian heritage and a Jewish stepmother. I have nothing against the state of Israel other than its policies in the occupied Palestinian West Bank. I want my family's history and the stories and struggles of Palestinians to be heard and to be known. And this bill is trying to suppress that kind of action and of voice. So I horribly object to this as a Virginia taxpayer. This does not belong in the Virginia Code. It is clearly a foreign influence in our domestic politics. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Noisier. William Walls.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is William Walls, and I'm a resident of Arlington, Virginia. I'm also a retired Foreign Service officer with the U.S. government, serving after 25 years overseas. I also visited Israel and Palestine in 2019, and I saw for myself what the treatment of Palestinians was by the Israelis at that time. I lived in South Africa for 8 years, and I know what apartheid is. And it is very, very, it is worse in Israel, Palestine, than it is in South Africa when I was there. Bottom line is, I think this bill does an injustice. I am asking you to vote no on HB 1898. This bill would essentially require companies and individuals doing business with the Commonwealth to sign a loyalty oath to a foreign government subject to serious penalties. It imposes a loyalty oath on government contracts, would be antithetical to the ideas of a free market and unconstitutional infringement on free speech. It would have a chilling effect on a legitimate and constitutionally protected criticism of Israel and Israeli human rights abuses. So I ask you, please, 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 I ask you vote no on House Bill 1898. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Walls. Paul Noercy.
Yes, hello, thank you. My name is Paul Norsey. I'm from Vienna, Virginia. I appreciate the opportunity to speak here today. I'm here to ask you to vote no on HB 1898. HB 1898 would be bad for business, bad for civil rights, and bad for human rights. HB 1898 would amend the Virginia Public Procurement Act to prohibit public bodies from contracting or subcontracting with businesses that, quote, engage in a boycott of Israel, its instrumentalities, or any of its territories, unquote. As such, this bill is clearly aimed to restrict our constitutional right to free speech, including the right to criticize any foreign government, foreign or domestic. Particular reasons not to vote for this bill is, one, as has been mentioned, this is essentially requiring companies wanting to do business with the state to sign a loyalty oath to a foreign government, subject to serious penalties. This is not good for business. This is antithetical to the ideals of a free market and free enterprise. Our contracts should be based on best value for the state, not based on political considerations. Additionally, this bill reintroduces, as has been mentioned, this is reintroducing bills which have already been considered. This is wasting taxpayer time and money, and this is wasting your time and money, respectfully, reconsidering something which has already been voted against as unconstitutional. Additionally, when this has been passed in other states, it has been consistently defeated by the courts because it is unconstitutional. George Washington said, if freedom of speech may be taken away, then dumb and silent we may be led like sheep to the slaughter. Boycotts are a time-tested tradition of free speech in this country, from the Boston Tea Party to the Montgomery bus boycott, to current day boycotts against places like Russia and China when they have violated human rights. Based on all these reasons, I ask you to please vote no on HB 1898 to affirm that all Virginians and businesses have the right to free speech, including the right to participate in boycotts. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Patty Brockmeyer. Yeah. Ms. Brockmeyer, you need to unmute your mic.
Thank you. So I'm Patty Brockmeyer, a member of Virginia Coalition for Human Rights. Boycotting a part of this bill is an instrument of peaceful protest. Voting yes to this bill takes boycotting away. For me, who is working for peace and justice for Palestinians, while I have to watch Palestinians' homes being demolished and their farms taken away or ruined by Israeli government, it is a means of peacefully objecting to that awful behavior. It seems like such a small request with the oppression of Palestinians by the Israeli government historically and currently happening, but it is a nonviolent means of protest. We need to be allowed to boycott as a peaceful protest. Please vote no on this bill.
Thank you, ma'am. I believe that takes care of everyone that's signed up online.
Mr. Chairman, our expert that we couldn't get on Zoom because y'all are having a Zoom glitch right now.
Yes.
His name is Elon Carr, and I don't know what it means to have a subpoena to testify, but we've actually got him right here on cell phone. Can we try holding that up to the phone, to the microphone, and see if he can speak?
It's your bill. You can present it how you wish, Delegate McGuire.
Hello, Elon, you're on.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, first of all, my apologies that I wasn't able to get onto Zoom, and I thank you for your time and consideration. The global campaign to boycott Israel is nothing other than national origin discrimination. And that's why, in bipartisan consensus, both the Biden administration and the last administration have drawn a clear link between the global BDS campaign and anti-Semitism. That's also why the U.S. House of Representatives under Nancy Pelosi formally condemned the BDS movement by a vote of 398 to 17. That is wide and broad consensus on how pernicious this campaign is. And so many states in the Union have said that it is contrary to our values as Americans to subsidize national origin discrimination. And there are 34 states that have enacted BDS laws very similar to this bill that you're considering. Some of them, just to name a few, Illinois, New Jersey, California, Colorado, and many, many states from East Coast to West Coast. Let me clarify a few misconceptions that I just heard uttered by some of the speakers. They spoke about free speech. Nothing in this bill prevents a state of Virginia contractor from condemning Israel or even spouting open anti-Semitism. They could say in print or in speech, I hate Israel, I hate Jews. None of that would violate the terms of this bill. And so there's absolutely no free speech limitation herein whatsoever. But now let's talk about something else, which is commercial activity, namely the refusal to buy or sell to the Jewish state. This has been a tool of anti-Semites throughout the ages. Don't buy from the Jews. This has been something that's been we've seen for many hundreds of years, and that's what this represents. But here's something very important. Even that is not prohibited. Companies can boycott Israel. All this bill is saying is that if you're going to refuse to buy or sell to the Jewish state, we, the state of Virginia, won't subsidize it. We won't deal with you. Go have at it. You can go do that, but we are not going to deal with you. We're not going to engage. We were not going to enter into a state contract with you for over $100,000. That's all this bill does. And again, there are 33 states. Virginia would be the 34th to do this. And this isn't about foreign influence. This is about American values and Virginia values, that we don't want the taxpayer money produced from hardworking Virginians to subsidize pernicious anti-Semitic discriminatory activity. And that's why this has been passed throughout the country, and that's why it has been introduced here. I respectfully encourage you to vote yes, and I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you so much.
Any members have questions for the witness? Delegate Torian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a comment that I want to make. It seems like when we get to some of these issues that come before us, in order for people to justify their position, they always want to reference black folks and Hispanics. Mr. Chairman, I would strongly encourage folks that when you're trying to make a point, you're not to use us to make your point. And I find it highly offensive that you want to use someone who looks like me to make your point.
I would say white.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, let's don't have argument across the dais. Any members have any questions for the witness? Now, Delegate Wampler, you had a question earlier about the names of companies that you were wondering had been exercising boycotts. Does the witness have any information with respect to that?
Alon, do you have any information on companies that are subject to BDS-style boycotts?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what was said. Do I have information on what is subject to BDS-style boycott?
Companies that are affected by BDS boycotts in
I
Virginia.
don't know of any Virginia company that is currently engaging in a boycott of the state of Israel. Now, I'm not saying there aren't any. I don't know of any. And so, in all likelihood, there would not be any Virginia companies that are prohibited from contracting with the state. In fact, Virginia has a very robust palette of trade and commerce with the state of Israel. And so this would actually, this bill, if it's enacted, would actually support the commerce that Virginia has with the state of Israel.
Mr. Chairman.
Actually, I got someone in the queue, Delegate Rome, ahead of you. Delegate Walker, you have a question?
Mr. Chairman, we've heard a lot of good discussion here today. And in light of the fact we have so many bills before us that we've got to get through, I would call for the vote. There's a motion that's already been made, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second to report House Bill 1898. I guess, was there a substitute?
Substitute?
Yeah. report the substitute to House Bill 1898.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to speak to the motion before the vote's cast.
Delegate Wampler.
This is an issue that should be handled in D.C., Virginia, okay? You know, this is something, if it's foreign relations, if it's dealing with cross-border contracting and what we should and shouldn't be doing, this should be left to the United States Congress, the President of the United States. But we're here. This bill's before us. There's been a motion, but that's my comment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Wampler. Have a motion and a second on the table to report the substitute to House Bill 1898. All in favor signify by your vote on the voting board. And close the roll. The bill would report 4-3. Delegate McGuire.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Thank you. Delegate Wiley, you have House Bill 2500.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Mine should be pretty straightforward. I have a substitute in front of you. I hope that has been.
With the substitute.
Motion, is there a second to that? Motion and second to adopt substitute. All in favor? Opposed? Substitutes before us. Delegate Wiley.
Thank you. House Bill 2500 is the pay of paid cleanup bill. This bill is a result of the procurement work group review of legislation we passed last year. As you may recall, last year we passed SB 550, a bill to ensure that those companies or individuals that perform construction work, general contractors, subcontractors, and lower tier subcontractors get paid for the work they perform on private and public projects. As part of this passage, a compromise between all parties resulted in a delayed enactment date and a direction to the DGS procurement work group to study the impacts and determine if any fine-tuning or technical cleanups were necessary. The work group met multiple times over the summer and fall, engaging all impacted stakeholders and producing a set of recommendations that seek to clarify terms, ensure timelines is accurate, and clearly denote who falls under this jurisdiction. The bill before you has been vetted by all stakeholders and is supported by contractors, GCs and subs, owners, architects and engineers, and public bodies. True to their word, all parties work together to create their compromise. Specific changes define a construction contract and subcontractor, exempts architects and engineers who contract directly with an owner, clarifies the owner's responsibility when notifying a GC for non-payment, and last, clarifies the contractor's responsibility when notifying subcontractors for non-payment. I welcome questions if you do have any. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Wiley. Members have questions for Delegate Wiley? Hearing none. Anyone here in support of the bill?
Julia Hammond on behalf of Associated Builders and Contractors representing GCs and subcontractors. We thank the delegate for patroning the cleanup bill. There should be total peace in the valley on this issue. The work group really went through all of the items of contention in detail, and we have resolved all of them.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Rob Bohannon representing the Richmond Area Municipal Contractors Association. These are heavy contractors. Echo the comments of Ms. Hammond, and also want to thank my colleagues who you're going to hear from. Everybody got together multiple times, talked about the issues, and sat down, and we said our goal was to come here and come up with something that everyone could live with, and I think we've done that. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Patrick Cushing on behalf of the American Council of Engineering Companies and the American Institute of Architects, and we support the bill and thank the patron and the folks working on this. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Brandon Robinson, Associated General Contractors of Virginia. We support the bill. I think it's a great example of getting together in the work group, working out all of our differences, and thank the patron for bringing it.
Anyone here in opposition to the bill? So, Delegate Wiley, we probably should have sent you and this group of people to the Middle East, and maybe we
came here on a lighter note, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Move to report, Mr. Chairman.
Motion and a second to report the bill. All in favor signify by your vote on the voting board. Bill would report 7-0. Thank you, Delegate Wiley.
Thank you, sir.
Who do we have here? Delegate Watts. I believe you're senior to all of us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On short session, I'll take anything that works. Thank you.
We have House Bill 2122.
The bill I have before you, 2122, is the unanimous recommendation of the Ethics Council, on which I said it's basically a cleanup bill. I'll explain it briefly, and then I also have a suggested friendly amendment, which would be further cleaning up the language of the bill. It makes 2 amendments to existing statutes. It's cleaning up the reference on the first statute regarding the Virginia Medical School to bring it in conformity with the change that was made in 2017, where the deadline used to be January 15th. It is now February 1st. The second change is to bring appointed members of school boards under the same requirements as far as ethics training that we have for elected school boards. And it is at that point that I would bring to your attention as a friendly amendment, and I've cleared it both with Stuart Petto, who is here to, who is the counsel for the Ethics Council, if you have any questions, as well as with legislative counsel for this subcommittee, that on a line 123 at the top of page 3, it refers to the local elected office as being within 2 months of assuming the local elected office. Elected should be stricken, and it should just read the local office.
Entertain a motion to approve that amendment.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Bill will be amended. Anyone here in support of the bill? Anyone here in opposition to the bill?
Move to report.
Second.
As amended.
Actually, we have someone who has signed up. I don't know if she's online. No, we're okay. We're good. Motion is second to report House Bill 2122 as amended. All in favor signify by your vote on the board. Go ahead and close the roll. Delegate Watch, your bill will report.
Thank you very much,
7-0.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Thank you. Delegate Bulova.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman.
Good afternoon. House Bill 2113.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee. House Bill 2113 would establish minimum procurement standards for 3 state authorities that are now completely exempt from the Public Procurement Act. I know as a longstanding member of this committee, I'm very proud of the fact that we have got a very transparent and open procurement process that really values competitiveness in order to go ahead and protect the taxpayer dollars and ensure we're getting the best bang for our buck. While most state agencies are subject to and must abide by the Virginia Public Procurement Act, there are 3 authorities that are completely exempt from that act. And so that's the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, the Virginia Tourism Authority, and the Virginia Innovation Partnership Authority. Those are actually relatively large agencies, and altogether the general fund supports them to the tune of about $110 million per year. So again, a sizable investment of taxpayer dollars into those agencies. I know the original idea behind this complete exemption was to allow them to operate more like businesses. I will tell you that I operate in the private sector. Our private sector business has very strong procurement processes and procedures because we want to make sure that we're protecting our bottom line. And so House Bill 2113 is modeled off of the way that we treat our Tier 3 and Tier 2 public institutions of higher education. And so in those cases, we do exempt them from good parts of the Virginia Public Procurement Authority, but we also still require them to go ahead and meet specific minimum standards. And so in terms of specifically what the bill does, Mr. Chairman, so first it actually requires each authority to have written policies for goods and services and procurement. So they all have some level of policies out there, but since it's a pure exemption, they're not actually required by law to have those policies, and so this just makes sure that they have that. And then the policies that have to have at a minimum is seeking competition to the maximum degree, requiring competitive negotiation for professional services unless there's only one source practically available, prohibiting discrimination based on the same factors as other state agencies have to abide by, and then also incorporating the prompt payment clauses and public inspection records that are already in the Virginia Public Procurement Act. There are exceptions, so there's 3 of them, and again, these track along with what we provide for our institutes of higher education. So it allows for exemptions for relatively small purchases and even large purchases, as long as you have a justification as for the cause. Allows them for emergency situations. Again, if you have written justification, it also allows for sole source awards. I know in my business, we often find that there's really just one qualified contractor, and so this allows you to go ahead and do that. Again, if you have written justification. So still lots of flexibility with respect to how these authorities can operate. But if you aren't going to use competitive negotiation, you need to be able to justify that. You need to be willing to go ahead and put that out in public. Language you have is redundant 3 times because you have to do this for each of the authorities. I would note that we do have one authority, so the Fort Monroe Authority, which quite frankly is as complicated, if not more complicated, than these other authorities. They are actually subject to the pure Virginia Public Procurement Act. I am getting the hook from Delegate Torrey, and I'm just about done. So anyways, this is just to make sure that we've got minimum standards. You'll recall that there was an issue over the summer with the Virginia Tourism Authority. I think that caught all of our attention. That's how this came to my attention. I did reach out to the governor's office to share the language, just to make sure that we had that dialogue. And while they didn't have a position, they did say, and I confirmed yesterday, that they do not have objections to this bill. So anyways, Mr. Chairman, I don't know that anybody here is super excited about giving up carte blanche authority, an exemption from the Virginia Public Procurement Act, but I think it's a good government bill that we can just make sure that there's some minimum standards.
Thank you, Delegate.
Done with my testimony. Thank you, Mr. Torrey.
Is anyone here in support of the bill? Anyone here in opposition to the bill?
Move to report.
Second.
Delegate Wampler, first of all, you have a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question for Delegate Boliva. What happens if an authority does not adopt these policies under your bill?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know that we can, it would, just like any other kind of policy or procedure that we require for state agencies, I imagine the governor will get involved or the attorney general involved, but obviously you're not going to be suing, or there's not a fine that you can go ahead and impose on them. It's just something that, as a matter of being a state authority, they've got to abide by the Code of Virginia.
Thank you. A motion is second to report House Bill 2113. All in favor signify by your vote on the voting board. And close the roll. House Bill 2113 reports 6-1.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Delegate Williams-Graves.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the subcommittee. I believe there is a substitute for 1878. Just line amendments? Okay, all right.
That's the council to report the line amendments.
Yes, Mr. Chair, on line 72, after Romanet 4, we're going to insert a closed parentheses. That was a typo. On line 73, after nuisances, we're going to strike sections 15.2-900, 15.2-901, 15.2-904, 15.2-906, 15.2-907, 15.2-908, and 15.2-921. And on line 75, after A, insert name and A.
Entertain a motion to adopt those amendments. Just a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Bill as amended is before us. Delegate Williams-Graves.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the subcommittee. House Bill 1878 is to allow localities the ability to protect its citizens from retaliation when reporting certain public health, safety, and nuisance violations in full transparency. We brought this bill last year, and the version before you is not the version that the FOIA Council agreed to. The version that the FOIA Council agreed to stripped out all of the things that basically were the recommendation or the reason why the city of Virginia Beach asked me to carry this bill. The bill is important to Virginia Beach to maintain their ability to receive input from citizens about potential health and safety hazards for both residential dwellings and commercial properties. The bill simply allows localities the discretion to withhold identifying information of residents who report these violations to protect them from retaliation. There already exists a FOIA exemption for releasing identifying information of residents who report zoning violations for the same reason. Technically, these equally important housing-related violations, such as inoperable cars, excessive trash, and other unsafe conditions, are within the city's housing and neighborhood preservation ordinances, not the zoning ordinances, and therefore those residents are not protected the same way that those folks who are reporting zoning ordinances are protected. This bill would bring those two sections into alignment and allow the city to withhold that personal information of residents reporting violations.
Thank you, Delegate Williams-Graves. Anyone have a question for Delegate Williams-Graves? Anyone here in, hold on, Delegate Rome, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question for the patron.
Yeah, Delegate Rome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could the patron just expand on what the FOIA Advisory Council's recommendation was and how it's different from this bill?
The FOIA Council, if I recall correctly, because I don't have that version in front of me, but the FOIA Council's version took out a lot of the conditions as to the exemption. So, for example, the inoperable cars, the excessive trash, if I'm not mistaken, they focused on what a person could be reported for, and I have an expert who can better answer that question.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I sincerely apologize about this. This substitute, I hadn't seen it and just heard about it now. Striking those 6 items moots the entire bill. So I think there may have been some confusion. So I don't know procedurally.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Can this bill go by temporarily?
Upon a motion. I take that as a motion.
I move that this bill go by temporarily.
Second.
Motion second to carry by the bill temporarily. Williams-Graves, why don't you get offline here and try to figure out what's going on?
I apologize.
No, that's fine. No worry. Who's here? Oh, yeah. Delegate Corey. House Bill 2498.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the subcommittee. I have before you, and I am here to explain House Bill 2498. This, like a lot of bills that are presented to you, I think this is a very simple bill. It simply includes members of park authority boards in the long list of local authorities that are required to have FOIA training. Currently, local park authority boards are not included.
There you go.
Very simple bill.
That's it. That's the gist of the bill.
Any members have questions for Delegate Corey? Anyone here in support of the bill? Delegate Leftfoot, you have a question?
So why?
Why?
I mean, I don't mean to be sarcastic, but what precipitated you bringing a bill to include
What
park authorities?
precipitated it was this bill is lack of transparency and some issues that have been pretty controversial in my district, and the park authority and the park authority was not very cooperative or transparent about their records.
Okay.
Anyone here in support of the bill? Anyone here in opposition to the bill? So, Ms. Ryan, Megan Ryan, can you hear me okay? Please unmute your mic.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. No, just we support the bill wholeheartedly. And yes, we did hear about all these, the issues that led to this bill. Delegate Leftwich, I was contacted even before Delegate Corey brought it to my attention as well. So yes, it was a problem.
Good. Thank you.
Move to report.
Motion is second to report House Bill 2498. All in favor signify by your vote on the voting board. Go ahead and close the roll. The bill to report 6-1. Thank you, Delegate Corey.
Thank you, ma'am.
Delegate Batten, I see you standing over there. You have two bills. One, or
I think I might have three bills.
three bills. Okay, great. Yeah.
Would you like me to go in numeric order?
Take them at your leisure.
Okay. I'll go ahead and start with House Bill 1911. This bill prohibits officers and employees of state and local governments from receiving a gift with a value exceeding $100 from foreign countries of concern. Those countries are defined in the bill, and they are the People's Republic of China, the Russian Federation, Iran, North Korea, Cuba, Venezuela, and Syria. There's also a substitute for this bill, and I'm happy to explain the substitute.
Motion to adopt substitute. Is there a second? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Substitutes before us.
So the only difference between the substitute and the bill as introduced was it strikes lines 94 through 96. The reason that it's an entire substitute is because it required renumbering all of the lines. So if you look at the original bill, it included private institutions as well. Private institutions of higher education, and we stripped that language out of the bill. And I'm happy to take questions, and I believe we also have someone from the Attorney General's office here to speak to it as well.
Thank you, Delegate Madden. Delegate Rome, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question for patrons. Mr. Chairman, I would ask the patron, could we just do this so that it applies to all countries? Because it seems like why are we allowing gifts to go to or from foreign dignitaries for anyone from any country? I would be totally fine if the delegate would have considered a friendly amendment to offer that.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I mean, I don't know that we're intending to prohibit people from taking a gift from their friends in Britain or France or a place like that. This would apply to all state and local officials as well. So there's already limitations, and you have to disclose whether or not you're receiving a gift. So this would just expand that you can't receive a gift from these certain entities.
Right. So, Mr. Chairman, a follow-up question.
Delegate Rome.
All right. So what I'm trying to get at here is, like, I see we have countries of concern, and at the same time, as members of the General Assembly, we're not, even from countries that are considered allies to the United States, and we were just having a discussion earlier on a different bill, and some of us who are more hesitant in terms of getting the General Assembly involved in foreign affairs in general, it would just seem that would the delegate agree that a blanket gift on bans, or, a blanket ban on gifts like this would actually be in the public interest, just because why are any of our, officials, regardless friend, foe, or whoever, being influenced by foreign dignitaries?
I think the intent of the bill is to prevent influence from hostile foreign dignitaries. Obviously, I understand that we don't want influence from any foreign dignitary, but I do think there's acceptable limits on being able to take a gift from an ally and having to report that. There is a reporting requirement for that.
Anyone here in support of the bill? Anyone here okay. Come forward.
Mr. Chair, briefly, Josh Humphreys from the Attorney General's office. We support the bill and thank the patron.
Thank you. Delegate Price, you have a question for the
Yes,
witness?
I do have a question. Mr. Chairman, for the patron, what was the rubric that was used to determine that these were the hostile ones, and is this list inclusive of the ones that would meet that rubric for hostile?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. So there was some federal reporting that came out. There's a federal requirement that all institutions of higher learning report foreign gifts, and so that's a federal policy right now. And there were some countries I would say of concern and interest that were significant donors, and they included China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, Syria, and Venezuela. So it was pulled from federal data.
Mr. Chair, there was a second part to that question.
Yeah, follow-up question, Delegate
Yeah, I
Price.
just wanted to repeat the second question. Is this a all-inclusive list?
Mr. Chairman, Delegate, no, it's not an all-inclusive list. These would just be folks that have a history of donating there, and there are some of the higher-level donors that have been flagged from that federal level.
Delegate Price, I'd say to you, it sounds like a bill for you all next year.
We'll see about the Senate.
Yeah, so anyone here in opposition to the bill? The bill will be before us. Delegate Roan, do you have a
No, speaking
motion?
to the bill, Mr. Chair.
Delegate Roan.
So, Mr. Chair, on an issue like this, look, I've been to Scotland 5 times. I've been to France 3 times. I've been to a lot of different countries many times. And I would never want to take any gift from any dignitary from those countries as an elected official. And the fact that we're regardless, and I've got tons of friends over there and everything, the way I look at this is just, this is going to end up being a Christmas tree bill. And we all know this is going to be a Christmas tree bill. We're going to come back for another country of another day, another year that we don't like in the future, and it's going to keep adding on this. This is, again, just an instance of the General Assembly doing what the delegate was talking about earlier in terms of, basically interjecting itself into what, the D.C. government is supposed to be doing. And so that's just my thoughts on the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion, a second on the floor to adopt or to approve House Bill 1911. All in favor signify by your vote on the board. House Bill 1911 would report 4-3. Delegate Batten.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Up next is House Bill 1913. This deals with the Virginia Public Procurement Act and prohibits state agencies from entering into contracts for purchase of goods that are branded with the state agency's logo and insignia. This bill is broad as written, and so therefore I have been collaborating with the Department of General Services and would just like to point out that they have agreed to develop policies during the upcoming year with the potential of legislation next year to address some of the underlying concerns, which are state agencies that operate in a monopoly sort of system, such as VDOT and places like that, who are purchasing promotional materials for items that don't require promotion because we have no other choice than to use them.
I understand. Take a motion to that effect then to gently lay this bill on the table with a letter.
Second.
Was there a motion?
Second.
Okay. Motion is second to lay the bill on the table. Motion would pass 6-0. Delegate Batten.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Finally, I have before you House Bill 2223. This adds the Virginia Innovation Partnership Authority members to purview of the Ethics Council, which means simply that they will have to file a statement of economic interest, just as we do, and this was at their request. And I'm happy to take questions or have someone here speak to the legislation.
Any members have questions for Delegate Batten? Anyone here in support of the bill?
Good afternoon. Conaway Haskins from the Virginia Innovation Partnership Authority. We're fully in support of the bill.
Thank you. Anyone here in opposition to the same?
Move to report.
Second.
Motion is second to report House Bill 2223. All in favor signify by your vote on the voting board. We close the roll. House Bill 2223 will report 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Thank you. Delegate Greenhall.
I don't think she heard you.
Delegate Greenhall.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. This is probably the easiest one of your day. This bill very simply allows school boards to have closed meetings when they are having discussions with parents about homeschool issues.
Delegate Rome, you have a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would ask the patron in this case what existing harm has been caused under current code unamended, and if the delegate could speak to that, that would be great.
So, good question. Under current code, school superintendents and local school boards are restricted from disclosing any information provided by a parent or student regarding homeschooling without the parent's consent. That's in Virginia Code 22.1-254.1. So they're required by law to keep it confidential, but they are not allowed by law to have closed meetings unless it's in code. There are 54 reasons they can have closed meetings. This would simply be number 55.
So, Mr. Chairman, follow-up question.
Delegate Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the question I had was what harm has been caused. So is there actual injury of some sort where someone's information, someone had something compromised or had the inability to perform a task or had another related issue because existing code does not currently include a FOIA exemption for those?
Well, the purpose of the bill is to make us compliant with the law, which says that this is to be confidential.
That's, Mr. Chairman, follow-up question. Last question.
Delegate Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what I'm asking for are existing circumstances where, because this FOIA exemption currently does not exist, someone has gone before and had something that was damaged or had their information that was taken and abused or anything of those lines where there is actual injury because we did not add a FOIA exemption to the Code of Virginia.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I personally don't know of any cases. I do have a speaker who may, but the point of the bill is simply to make the code compliant. We have a conflict and it's trying to solve the problem.
Thank you, Delegate Greenhall. Anyone here in support of the bill? Please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Scott Woodruff, Homeschool Legal Defense Association. And to refer briefly to the question, this bill actually fixes the pothole before somebody breaks an axle in it. I've been helping families with religious exemptions from public attendance for 24 years. And the universal practice across the Commonwealth is that when a school board discusses a religious exemption, when they have a meeting related to a religious exemption, they treat it in a closed session. That's very appropriate, very proper. That shows delicacy toward the family. Oftentimes, families don't want their private religious beliefs discussed in a public setting. Problem is, that law doesn't currently allow them to have a closed session on that. This allows school boards to have closed sessions, so what they're currently doing right now as a general practice would be lawful.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. I'm Sherry Story. I'm speaking for the Family Foundation. And as a school board member for 4 years, this brings clarity to school boards so that they know exactly where the lines are, that they have permission to do this. It's very important for school boards to know that they are secure within the FOIA law, and we often struggled with this. So for that reason, and as the Family Foundation would support this bill also.
Thank you.
I'm Yvonne Bunn with Home Educators Association of Virginia. We also support this bill.
Thank you. Anyone here in opposition to the bill? No one here. The only person that's signed up online is apparently not in the room. So, Delegate Greenhall, I'll give you the last word. Oh, 1 second. Delegate Rome, do you have a question?
I'm going to speak to the bill, Mr. Chairman, at the appropriate time.
Let me give her the word. Go ahead, Delegate Greenhall. Delegate Greenhall, last word.
Okay. It's very simple. We're just trying to make things go smoothly and stay within the law. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Delegate Rome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Speaking to the bill. The Code of Virginia for the Freedom of Information Act has more than 150 exemptions currently. I believe it's actually closer to 170, depending on how you subdivide it. And then, as talking to the executive director from FOIA Advisory Council, another 50 FOIA exemptions regarding meetings. I've said in this subcommittee before, and I'm going to reiterate the point here, that the General Assembly for decades has treated the Virginia Freedom of Information Act like a giant block of Swiss cheese, and we keep poking hole after hole after hole in it. And the reason I keep asking the questions about what actual harm has been done is because we default as a body to making the Freedom of Information Act more restrictive as opposed to more accessible. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Delegate Rome. Bill is before us. A motion is second to report House Bill 1953. All members will signify their vote on the voting board. Close the roll. Bill will pass 5-3. Thank you, Delegate Greenhall. Delegate Lefwich, you have House Bill 1957. Chairman Lefwich.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. House Bill 1957 is a procurement bill. And so some years back, there was legislation passed that created a threshold for CM at risk, and that threshold is at $26 million. What this bill does is attempts to raise that bar, giving a number of factors that have come to light through some FOIA requests and also the increase in cost of construction. And so basically what this bill does is excludes the application of this bill to any project $5 million and below. And then it states that you have to get permission to do CM at risk for any project under between $5 million and $125 million. And anything over $125 million is subject to CM at risk. The bill gives some definitions to a couple of terms like competitive sealed bidding. It further expands upon the criteria upon which you might have a special construction project, a significant historical building, or something that is extremely complex because of the nature of the construction, its location, or cultural significance. And that's pretty much the bill in a nutshell. And the last thing I would point out is that it really kind of creates a two-step process for some of these projects, in that you do the design phase of it first with the pre-construction, and then once you have that completed, then you would do a sealed bid for the second half of that. And there are plenty of people who will speak for it, who may be able to provide additional detail, and I suspect you'll hear from a number of folks that are opposed as well.
Any members have questions for for Chairman Lefwich? Anyone here in support of the bill?
Yes, thank you. I'm Tony Biller. I'm the president of Nielsen Builders in Harrisonburg. We established in 1908. We're 80 people, an ESOP company. We've done over 100 projects at universities, and until the process was changed about 13 years ago and gone away from competitive sealed bidding to the more subjective procurements. Since that time, we've basically been told by that university and many other universities we work for and localities that we're not qualified to do the work anymore. So all we're asking for is competition. Our group is capable of doing these projects, and we feel like this bill gives the opportunity back to small and mid-sized companies that are being excluded in favor of larger companies. And with that, I ask you to pass the bill.
Thank you.
I'm Ariana Williams with Lance Construction Company. We are a local GC out of the Shenandoah Valley. We are 100% employee owned. We've been in business since 1960, and I'll pretty much echo what Tony said, and we are in support of this bill.
Thank you.
Jack Dyer, thank you. I'm owner of Gulf Seaboard General Contractors, minority-owned small business out of Ashland. In business, you spend your whole life building a company with good people that become your family, and then you see what regulation can do to diminish all you've built, including your employees, in a short amount of time. with enactments that ultimately benefit a few. Our bill is not a repeal, but an adjustment to an action that came out of this body. The guiding principles of the 1982 Virginia Public Procurement Act, and I quote, "Public procurement is characterized by competitive bidding because the public perceives that this method ensures equal access to public business, provides control over contracting officials to minimize favoritism and corruption, and implies cost savings." We have met with higher ed and stakeholders year after year, and their unified response has been they're not going to change status quo in respect to procurement until this body tells them so. So I ask you, please report this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Todd Morgan. I'm president of MB Contractors in Roanoke, Virginia. We were founded in 1912. We're members of both the Virginia Contractor Procurement Alliance and the AGC, and we strongly support this bill. Over a decade ago, and prior to being effectively boxed out by construction management at risk being utilized almost exclusively by higher education, we had performed many successful projects for multiple universities. We're not opposed to CM at risk. We just want it to be used for its original intended purpose. Competition is fundamental to a good economy and provides the best product and price. In fact, JLARC also reconfirmed that competitive bidding is the best method of procurement in their 2014 report on contracting in the state. Our member companies are just disappointed. We want to be able to perform work for the universities and colleges that we have attended and that we love and that are supported by our tax dollars. So all we ask is that this not get deflected to another useless study. Please take the lead and move this bill forward today. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Tom Evans, general contractor, and I support this bill. I started my firm 46 years ago with a borrowed note, and through competitive sealed bidding, government projects, we plowed our profits back into the company. Today we have 75 employees and do multi-million-dollar projects. So SIM at risk, as it's being used now, has shut us out of that market. Our briefcase just doesn't have enough alligator on it. But I appreciate that considering this, and I appreciate you if you would support this bill.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Sam Daniel. I'm with Daniel & Company. We're a local Richmond contractor. I've been in this business for about 45 years. My entire time has been doing work for the Commonwealth of Virginia and also other localities. For the last 15 at least years since the state has started using CM at risk, our company has no longer been able to work on most of the state's colleges and universities. It has greatly impacted our business and detrimentally, and I'm here today to tell you that I am in support of this bill, and I'm asking for your support with it as well. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in support?
Good afternoon. My name is Brandon Spencer. I'm with Kenbridge Construction. This is our 75th year in business this year. All we're looking for is an opportunity to bid these jobs. We routinely do jobs all over the state of Virginia, and we just feel like we're being cut out of this market. We're definitely in support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Mellon. I'm president of Century Construction Company. We're located here in Richmond, Virginia. We're an employee-owned company. And as our other folks here have said, we are strongly supportive of this bill, and we appreciate its passage. We think it's a fair and wise use of taxpayers' dollars, and it opens up the process for more of us mid to smaller contractors. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else wish to speak in support?
Good afternoon. My name is Jim Tate. I represent the Virginia Association of Roofing Professionals. We're a statewide organization compromised with contractors, suppliers, distributors, and specifiers, and we strongly support this bill. We'd appreciate you too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry I was upstairs on another bill, but Matt Bentke with the Virginia Contractor Procurement Alliance. We support this bill, as I'm sure you've heard from all of our members, or a lot of our members.
I think all of them.
Well, no, we've got, you'd be surprised how many general contractors
No, I
have been let
understand.
out of higher ed. So, yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anyone here in opposition to the bill?
Afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Brandon Robinson with the Associated General Contractors, Virginia. We represent commercial contractors in the state. And our policy has always been to support free and open competition in the market, whether that procurement method is CM at risk, whether that procurement method is competitive seal bid. So I'm going to be the beginning of a long group of stakeholders who candidly were not approached about this bill ahead of time. And this bill fundamentally changes the way we do procurement in the Commonwealth. It essentially eliminates CM at risk. I know that there's been conversation of there's options, but for all intents and purposes, this eliminates it for the vast majority of folks. We've heard from a group of small contractors. I'm not sure how many they totally represent. We've asked for that list, haven't seen that yet. But AGC represents over 500 member companies, almost 300 contractor members. We represent some of the biggest, in fact, one of the top in the world. But over 50% of our contractor members are $10 million and less in revenue. So we represent the small, the medium, and the large. And we're just not sure that there's a problem here we need to solve looking at some of the data that has been presented or that has been floating around. I've seen some of the data. I'm not sure it's giving us a full picture. So our position is let's get into the DGS work group. Let's study this. I think it's not a useless group. I think there's plenty of examples of places that people who have been opposed to things come back the next year after it goes through the work group. And so that's what we would ask to look at that data. So you've heard from a small group of contractors that's wants a monumental change. I'm standing here representing a large, broad group of contractors who says, if we need a change, then let's look at the data. Let's make sure that we've got accurate data that we can all agree, and then work through a negotiated change to figure out, with all the stakeholders at the table, what makes sense. So for that, we ask that this bill be sent to study. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm John McHugh. I'm the president of the Virginia Association of State College and University Purchasing Professionals. VASCUP is what we're referred to. I'm also a member of that public body working group. The VASCUP institutions that I represent are opposed to this bill. Raising the threshold and adding approval criteria effectively leaves us with one competitive procurement method, and that's a bid. We lose the ability to choose best competitive method based on complexity of the project, type of project, and the timeline considerations for many of the buildings that we build. Costs are more accurate, and change orders are minimized when designer, general contractor, and owner are able to communicate before project starts. Bids don't allow for effective communication between the parties. The threshold for bids was raised prior to the pandemic, and the impact really hasn't been assessed since the pandemic. Alternative procurement methods require 90% of work to be subcontracted. It provides more opportunities for diverse suppliers and increases competition among those subcontractors. We had a recent procurement study that showed that CM at risk is most widely used procurement method for construction across the country, and makes Virginia a national leader in its construction procurement methods. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Chairman, members of the committee, subcommittee, I'm Bill Hefty. I'm representing the Virginia Association of Governmental Purchasing. There's about 1,000 purchasing professionals at the state and local level in Virginia that actually do these contracts, and I'm also have authority to speak for the Virginia Municipal League and Virginia Association of Counties. A lot of conversation has been about universities and state agencies. This bill applies to all localities as well and pretty much eliminates construction management at risk for projects under $125 million. Localities do most of their work through competitive sealed bidding. We think we're responsible in using construction management at risk and design build when that's appropriate for a project, and we would like to continue to have that tool in our work package to use when it's appropriate. The procurement work group study was put in place to deal with issues just like this, where there are two sides that need to try to work something out. We're glad to do that. We think it's a complicated issue. It's not a simple issue. And we would ask that you put this in the procurement work group study over the summer. Let us work on it, bring it back to you next year, hopefully with an agreement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Chris McDonald with Williams Munn on behalf of the American Institute of Architects and the American Council of Engineering Companies. We also oppose the bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, I'm Rich Lewoski. I'm with VCU, and prior to that, I was with the Department of General Services. We have a contract going on right now, a project that would not have made it through the sieve. We use CM at risk. As you know, the Pocahontas building is scheduled for demolition. We have our main server farm in there. We needed to get a building up and running in time for DGS to make its critical timelines. We chose CM at risk. And another part of that, the contractor we chose has been in business less than 9 years. A minority contractor who's doing a dynamite job. He made that choice to be able to go low bid or CM at risk. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I'm batting cleanup. Julia Hammond on behalf of Associated Builders and Contractors. We represent 650 contractors, the vast majority of which are of the same size of the contractors you've heard today. And while they admit that this is something that should continue to be discussed and studied, they vehemently oppose this as the vehicle to do it. The bill, I'll start first on the data that they talk about in the JLARC report from 2014. We drastically changed this procurement in 2018. So using old data from JLARC isn't going to be very helpful. We do think, and we just testified on another bill that went through the procurement work group that had extensive study and hearings over the summer, and you saw total kumbaya on the product that came out of it. We absolutely want to work with the patron and the other stakeholders to try and solve some of the issues which aren't included in their bill, which include pre-qualification for construction projects, but doing it in a very short session, we disagree that that is the way to handle it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak against the bill? Chairman Leffitz will give you the final word.
Last word. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I don't know what may have transpired during the summer, but when the bill was introduced, obviously there was some opposition. Held a meeting on the 13th floor with Chair of Appropriations and Tony Maggio, and the story then was the same. Let's just push this off. Let's study it during the summer. And I said, well, you know, we have several weeks. I want to try to work on it. And it was no. And I invited anyone who didn't want to work on it to step out of the room. No one left. And since that meeting, Julie Hammond's the only person that's reached out to me with Associated Builders and Contractors with a method of trying to move forward in a compromise setting. And so to say that they want to study this during the summer and not having to engage in any discussions, since that meeting is disingenuous, I'm asking that the committee recommend the bill for reporting. It'll go to appropriations. We have something on the table to work with, and I ask for people to come to the table and try to work something out.
Thank you, Chairman. Bill will be before us.
Is
there a second? I'll second the bill. A motion and a second to report House Bill 1957 and refer to appropriations. All in favor signify by your vote on the board. Delegate Leftwich, the bill would fail to report by a 4-4 vote. Thank you. Okay. Turn the gavel over to you, Delegate Brewer, as I'm going to go down front and present this bill. Go from here?
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, next up we have Delegate Campbell, your bill number
2450.
All right, House Bill 2450 is before us. Delegate Campbell.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. This is another bill involving construction management contracts. In the next 5 years, it's expected through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act that more than $19 billion is going to be spent in Virginia on local infrastructure projects. Current law provides that if a public body is utilizing a construction management program, that the contractor is subject to a 10% limitation on being able to utilize his own resources to perform the job. This limitation has had the impact of limiting the number of qualified contractors who will participate in the same. All this bill will do, and we have a substitute, I do believe, that probably needs to be adopted.
Can I get a motion to move the substitute? Second. All right, all those in favor? Aye. All right, the substitute is probably before us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What the substitute will now do is simply lift the 10% limitation. Doing so will allow for more contractors, more qualified contractors to be able to participate in this, and we will better utilize the more than $19 billion that we expect to be spending on infrastructure projects in the localities. Hope to be the will of the body to favorably report upon the same.
All right, thank you, Delegate Campbell. Do we have anyone in the audience in support of House Bill 2450?
Good afternoon, delegates and staff. My name is Brian Walker, and I serve as an officer in charge for Clark Water, a division of Clark Construction Group. Thank you for this opportunity for us to provide our support for House Bill 2450, as introduced by Delegate Campbell. By way of background, Clark Construction Group is a 116-year-old firm with significant operations in the Commonwealth of Virginia. As a diversified building and civil construction company with offices in Fairfax, Loudoun, and Richmond, we provide significant work in the area. Based on the legislation passed by the General Assembly several years ago that currently limits 10% of the amount of construction work for the CM at risk work that they can perform with their own forces. The current law requires the construction manager to subcontract nearly 90% of the work. While this limitation may have been put in place to encourage greater competition and participation by various contractors on building projects, we have seen situations where it's having the opposite effect, especially in the infrastructure market, where projects are often larger and have fewer and more specialized trade packages and trade contractors. We have seen examples on infrastructure projects where Virginia's 10% self-perform limitation prevents construction managers at risk from also submitting sealed competitive bids for trade contracts that it is able to perform. This is having what I'm sure is an unintended consequence of denying local public entities such as county governments and water authorities the full competitive market pricing from certain trade contracts. Allow me to offer an example. On a project in Loudoun County, our company is selected as a construction manager at risk for this project. Our team brought the experience in CM at risk, water pump stations, and tunneling. However, with the 10% limitation on self-perform work, we are restricted from submitting a bid and possibly bringing the best expertise to the work. Trade packages like tunneling, process mechanical, range from 30 to 50% of the values on some of these contracts, well in excess of the 10% cap. With an already limited number of contractors in these specialized fields, this is resulting in loss of competitions for our owners In fact, having fewer than 3 competitive bids on certain trade packages creates a risk to our public owners of not getting the most competitive pricing possible, thus paying a premium in Virginia. We believe that Virginia's current limitations on
Sir,
CMAR... Yes,
can
ma'am.
you try to be brief?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
In order to give Virginia public entities the most competitive market pricing possible on infrastructure projects, we recommend that the current restrictions on CMAR be modified where it would deem to be in the best interest of the public entities to make that decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in support? And I guess going forward, please try to be succinct. Thank you. Anyone else in opposition of House Bill 2450?
Madam Chair, Brandon Robinson, Associated General Contractors. Just as I was standing up a few minutes ago, any major change to the Procurement Act, we would ask go to study. So for that reason, we would ask this bill go to study as well.
Anyone else in opposition to House Bill 2450? Delegate, I'll give you the final word. Do I understand your bill's permissive, correct?
It is permissive, correct.
Okay, just so everyone's aware of that. Final word?
Just ask you that you act favorably upon the same.
All right, committee operates by motion. We have a motion and a second. Please prepare to vote. With substitute.
Substitute. She picks it. All right, go ahead. Delegate Williams-Graves, I understand you've been working very hard for quite a long while now on this bill, so why don't you come forward and tell us what progress you've been able to make.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee, I think we found the crux of the problem, and that is the introduced bill should only have one amendment on line 75. All of the other substitutes were not substitutes that we authorized because those substitutes came from the FOIA Commission, and that was not the bill that we wanted to put forward. It's the original bill, but there is a technical amendment on line 75 that we needed to add, introduce A and insert name and A in line 75.
Okay.
So you should probably reject those other amendments and start over.
Yeah. I'm going to entertain a motion to reject the previous amendments to House Bill 1878. I have a motion, a second. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. The bill in its original form, I guess, is now before us, so I would ask that the council report the new amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could we just get a little bit of clarification? Is it correct, Patron, that you would only like the third line amendment that was offered to the committee?
That is correct. The third line amendment that in subcommittee, line 75, introduced after A, insert name and A. Yes.
Okay. And line 72 also would need the technical parenthesis added. So
what we don't want is to strike all of the additional.
Right. Okay. So we'll limit the nuisances to those specific provisions of local government. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Okay.
But we want to keep everything from the original bill.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right. Entertain a motion to adopt those amendments. Is there a second? All in favor? I know it's been a long meeting. We're almost home. Okay. All right. All in favor? Opposed? All right. The bill that's newly amended is now before us. Okay. Delegate Williams-Graves.
Thank you. And for the sake of those who were not here earlier, in full transparency, again, we did introduce this bill last year. It went to the FOIA Council. FOIA Council's recommendations are not the ones we accepted because they did not do for the city of Virginia Beach what we asked the reason that we brought this bill in the first place. This bill allows the locality's discretion to withhold identifying information of residents who report violations to protect them from retaliation. There's already a FOIA exemption for releasing the identity of information to residents who report zoning violations for this same reason. So this bill just simply brings the residential side and the commercial zoning side into alignment.
Thank you, Delegate Williams-Graves. Anyone here in support of the bill?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Deborah Bryan from the City of Virginia Beach. First, thank you to the delegate for working so hard with us on this to solve what has become a very serious problem in Virginia Beach. The reason that we brought this back again for a second year in a row is because it is very important to the city and the residents. We all agree very strongly that the Freedom of Information Act exists to ensure an informed citizenry and to hold the government accountable. When this act was adopted in 1968, the authors were smart enough to include exclusions and exemptions, knowing that release of certain information could do more harm than good. And this is one of those situations. We are all very sensitive to the many exemptions within FOIA, and I heard Delegate Robe loud and clear on a few bills ago that we have between 150 and 170 amendments. We agree with that and understand, but we have a hesitation to add any more. But this body has always been very thoughtful and deliberate when making any amendments to the Freedom of Information Act. It's about striking a balance. When the mandatory release of a resident's contact information consistently does more harm to residents and neighborhood than the benefit of the transparency, this is why the exemptions exist. In the city's experience, when a person who has committed one of these code violations requests the contact information of the informant, more times than not it has resulted in retaliation and harassment against the person. The person who reports the violator is seeking to maintain its neighborhoods and the health and safety of their neighborhoods. They should be able to do so freely and not be retaliated against and have the city be a facilitator in that retaliation. We need to protect and preserve our neighborhoods while protecting the public, and this bill does both. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Michelle Gowdy from the Virginia Municipal League. We support the bill for all the reasons that Ms. Bryan told you.
Thank you.
Phyllis Erico from VACO, and we also support the bill.
Anyone here in opposition to the bill? So we have Megan Ryan online. Ms. Ryan?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Megan Ryan with the Virginia Coalition for Open Government. And Delegate Williams-Graves is correct. This is not the version of the bill that that the FOIA Council approved of. They had several meetings to look over this particular bill that was sent to them last year, and ultimately decided that they did not want to extend this exemption in this way. I would like to note the different character of the types of nuisance complaints that are being added. So we have the building code and the fire code, which are dealing with people's safety. The list of provisions here include grass clippings, runaway bamboo, inoperable vehicles, swimming pool fences, private swimming pool fences. And so while we're worried about retaliation against people who are making these complaints, and they're worried that they might be retaliated for making the complaint against, I would like to also point out that it can be used to abuse the system. As an article in Nashville this summer found out from looking at anonymous complaints in that city, they were being used to force out poor and minority communities in order to gentrify neighborhoods in the Nashville area. We oppose this bill, and I am also speaking on behalf of the Virginia Press Association this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan. Wells Freed. Is he online? Hello?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you fine, Mr. Freed. I'm sorry.
I'm actually speaking in support of the bill today. So good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and subcommittee members. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Wells Freed. I'm the Housing Code Administrator for the City of Virginia Beach. And my office is tasked with enforcement of the city's local housing and nuisance codes, which is those listed in the proposed bill. The City of Virginia Beach fully supports this bill because it does two things. The first is that it updates the Freedom of Information Act exclusion to allow localities to withhold a complainant's email address. And the second most important thing that it does is closes the loophole in the exclusion that creates a safety hazard for our citizens. In some localities, housing and nuisance codes are part of their zoning ordinance. Therefore, these localities can already utilize the existing exclusion for zoning code complaints. In Virginia Beach, we're unable to utilize this exemption simply because our housing codes are not located within the city's zoning ordinance. So the proposed amendments will make this consistent across the state for all types of code enforcement and housing property, private property complaints. We in Virginia Beach have encountered the situations that this bill would help us prevent. We've had situations where complainants' information has been turned over to an individual or a property owner who they complained about, and we've seen retaliation via email. We've seen individuals that were followed and threatened, and we're trying to close this loophole to prevent anything further of that nature. Thankfully, no one was harmed during these confrontations. However, in a world that continues to become less safe, we fear that having to release a complainant's personal contact information could result in somebody getting harmed or worse. And we feel that the release of personal information serves no purpose other than to promote feuds between neighbors. Therefore, we're asking that the committee vote in support of this bill, and we thank Delegate Williams-Graves for bringing this forward and supporting our effort to keep our citizens safe. Thank you.
Mr. Freed, let me ask you, in the past year, how many such requests for disclosure, he's gone offline. You can get him back? Yeah, please do. And Delegate Williams-Graves, you may have this answer, I'm not sure, but do you know how many actual requests? Okay. Mr. Freed, can...
Yes.
Mr. Freed, I'm sorry. I was trying to ask you a question. In the past year, do you have any idea how many complaints, actual requests, rather, for disclosure of the complainant's name you've received with respect to these types of complaints?
Yes, we receive them periodically. We probably received about 10 or 15 within the past year.
Okay. And I assume it would be your position that you believe you might receive even more complaints if people realized that they would not be disclosed. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Delegate Williams-Graves.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I will say that to the opposing witness, the City of Virginia Beach and its attorneys tried to work to come to some agreement on what they thought might be an appropriate penalty for abuse. We were unable to do that. And lastly, I would say that code enforcement cannot be everywhere, and we can't see everything. And as a former local elected official, that was an issue that we had in the city of Norfolk as well. And so when folks feel comfortable complaining about zoning violations, and housing code violations. It just helps to make sure that neighborhoods are better upkept. I've had the opportunity to tell people that ugly is not a housing violation, but sometimes, people can get people will want to make sure that their neighborhoods and their communities are properly kept. So again, this just simply brings parity to the zoning and housing ordinances, and it provides consistency on both ends.
Okay, thank you. Bills before us.
And I would request that you would move to report.
I hear you. So we have a motion. Is there a second? Is there a second? Anyone? Delegate Williams-Graves, I've given you every chance here, but it looks like the bill's going to die for a lack of a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the committee.
Thank you. All right, I believe that completes
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Having voted on the prevailing side by which we failed to report House Bill 1957, I would ask that we reconsider that vote. I'd like to speak to that.
Yes, Delegate Coiner.
The patron would like the opportunity to continue working with stakeholders on this, and it sounds like they can make some progress between here and appropriations. So I would ask that we reconsider that bill.
Is there a second to that motion? Second to that. I have a motion and a second to reconsider the vote on House Bill 1957. All in favor signify by your vote on the voting board.
It's a voice vote.
It is a voice vote? All right, it's a voice vote. Hold one second. Yes. Delegate Thorne. Why didn't the committee go at ease? Just 1 second. In favor for reconsideration, signify. Bill's back before us.
Mr. Chair, I would move to report and refer to appropriations and speaking to the motion.
Delegate Coiner.
Being a member who does also serve on appropriations, I bring this back because I do believe the delegates committed to getting this in a posture where folks can come together and be supportive. So I make the motion to report and refer to appropriations.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion, a second. Delegate Rome, you have a.
I just want to speak to the motion.
Speak to the bill.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm going to vote yes to keep the process going because I think that there is still time for people to work this out, especially considering that we got crossover coming up. And it's, if it goes over to the Senate and you got it going into their appropriations, there's a lot more chances to iron this out. So while I don't think that we're in a great peace in the valley situation right now, I do think it's best to keep it going.
Thank you, Delegate Rome. All right, motion is second to report and refer to appropriations, House Bill 1957. All in favor signify by your vote on the voting board. Delegate Wamper, you want to vote? Okay. Go ahead and close the roll. Bill would report 5-2. Now, I believe that completes our docket for the day, does it not?
You should announce that this bill was passed by.
Okay, yeah. Well, I did it earlier.
You did?
Yeah, I did. Okay, committee will rise.